I was the kid who was just absolutely addicted to the sport. I always wanted more training. I always wanted to do more, and was able to convince my dad to come out and teach me. But one of the main things I think that set me apart as a youth player, and still to this day, to be honest, I still play in adult leagues, and I find myself being one of the better players, is the fact that my dad sat me down and watched soccer with me.
Hey team, welcome to the Kick It with Katie podcast. I'm your host, Katie Colliker. Are you ready to kick it today? I'm ready to kick it today. Today is episode 16, and today's episode is going to feature my interview with Craig Hearn. Craig is one of the hosts and creator of We Are Soccer. It is a weekly show where they go live and they talk about all things soccer. So go ahead and give them a listen. They upload their episodes after they go live. They go live on like Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, lots of different places that you can view them, and you can see them in studio while they're filming live, and then they post their shows later for podcast episodes, and you can go back and listen to those if you're not able to listen or watch live. And they talk about all the leagues that are going on, any soccer news. They talk about EPL, La Liga, Bundesliga, MLS. They touch on youth soccer, national teams, just any soccer news, anything that's relevant. They are talking about it. And I was so grateful to have Craig on, and I'm excited to share his story and just the conversation that we had. And maybe one day I'll get Brooks and Nate on. Those are his co-hosts. And Craig also, they bring in some guest hosts when other guys can't be there. And it's a great little setup that they've got going on. So if you are listening from We Are Soccer, thank you guys so much for joining me today and listening to this episode. Please subscribe, give a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated, and share this because it's taken off, and I've really loved where the podcast is going. So thank you guys for your support, and go and support We Are Soccer. And they have a great community over there. They have a private Facebook group that we talk about in the episode, and a lot of fun conversations and stuff that goes on over there. So if you want more soccer, unfiltered, unscripted, it's great just to listen to them, sometimes argue and whatnot. So it's a great show that they've got going on over there, and I'm definitely a fan. If you are looking for any action photography, I do have a friend who does action photography. So if you are interested in somebody coming and taking pictures of your kids' sports, it's finally sunny and spring here in Utah. It feels so much like spring. Last week we had snow, and it has all since melted. Now we're worrying about flooding, but I'm grateful for the sun to be out now instead of snow, because we can go out and play soccer. A lot of people finally got on the pitch this week after not being able to for several weeks, so it's just been great. But HardmanActionPhotography.com, go over and check them out. You can find them on Instagram, HardmanPhoto911. Check out what they've got going on, and they've got some great photos sessions that they've posted. They do all sorts of sports and any photography. They've done dance photos, different things like that, probably weddings, just whatever your photography needs. Give them a look and contact them if you are interested. If you mention the podcast, Kick It with Katie, they will give you 25% off your next session. So make sure you mention me and you will get that discount. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast or have questions for future guests, give me an email at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram, kickitwithkatiepodcast _ between all the words, and the link is always in the show notes. But I am just excited to get started and get this episode with Craig going. So here is my interview with Craig Hearn. Hey guys, this is Katie on Kick It with Katie, and today I have Craig Hearn, and he is going to be telling us about his story and how he is now the host of We Are Soccer. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your soccer experience?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me, Katie. I very much appreciate it, and looking
Mm-hmm.
forward. So yeah, I'm. My name's Craig Hearn. I'm currently the host of We Are Soccer. It's a show that goes live every Sunday night for 2 hours. We talk about soccer from around the world, youth soccer, pro soccer, and everything. I still play soccer. I'm in my early 40s. And listen, soccer has given me so many things in life that it was kind of a natural thing to just sort of dive in to do a podcast show that I've got, the We Are Soccer, because I grew up playing soccer. I refed it, I've coached it, I've trained it, I've done everything. So after everything, it was like, what else is there? I guess I'll do a soccer show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. This morning I had a meeting with the team who we have here at We Are Soccer, and next week we're actually going to go live every day for an hour, and we're just going to talk soccer news, transfer rumors, and all the rest. So
Nice.
we are expanding, and we're going to have more fun. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you want me to start with how I got into soccer.
Yeah.
You tell me, what would you like to know?
Yeah. So how did you so you were born in South Africa, and tell me about, where you were born, where you started to get introduced to soccer and then coming to the US.
Sure. I kind of have to take it a little bit before I was born, to step back there. Both my parents are born in England. And back in the 70s, it was popular for people in England kind of start over and move to South Africa. So both my parents, who grew up 5 minutes apart from each other in England, didn't know each other, separately moved to South Africa, met there, and then got married and had myself and my two younger brothers. My dad played soccer in England in the lower divisions, moved to South Africa and became a full professional. So he played in front of crowds of 80,000 every week, and soccer was his life for many years. And then obviously he had three sons, me being the oldest, and I just kind of watched him play. I remember one of my first memories in life is being in a stadium full of 80,000 people watching my dad play soccer. So I just fell in love with the sport, and every day I was outside playing soccer with my dad and my brothers and my friends from around the neighborhood. So that's kind of how I got into it, and it's become an obsession,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. My wife doesn't like it too much anymore, because I still, I'm 42, as I said, and I'm still every day doing something with soccer, either playing, reading, watching. But yeah, it was the seed in my brain from early on in life, and I lived in South Africa for 7 years after I was born there, and we moved to England for two. And I remember every single day in England being outside playing soccer with the kids in the street, and at school at recess playing soccer. And it just really became something that I really just couldn't stop doing. And then I moved here to the USA, and I was just 9.5, almost 10 years old, and nobody really played it. So it was very interesting. I remember one of the first days I was at school, I was talking with the kids, and I did have an English accent at that point, which they loved. I said, "Hey, why don't we go outside and play football?" And they said, "That's great." And then all of a sudden, they bring this ball that's an American football. I went,
Right.
"The heck is this? I don't.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't roll very well." And they went, "Oh, you mean soccer?" And I successfully convinced the entire third and fourth grade at my new elementary school to play soccer for the next couple of months at recess. And
Nice.
we had games of, 20, 30, 40, 50 kids playing soccer. It was epic. And
Nice.
yeah, that point I went, all right, this sport can actually be here in America. And I jumped in and started playing with the youth team at that point. But yeah, I've just every day soccer from day one, man.
And how did you train to prepare yourself, like, wanting to be, I'm assuming you wanted to be a professional soccer player just like your dad. And so, how did you, coming to America where the sport back in those days wasn't as big as it is now? I mean, it's still bigger globally, but how did you train, and did your dad help you train, or what were your influences growing up?
Sure. Yeah. So, when we moved here, my dad obviously had a full-time job. He was an engineer. That's kind of what brought us here to Detroit with Ford and the auto
Mm-hmm.
industry. When I was younger, yeah, we trained just like kids, a lot less frequently than kids do today. It was twice a week for an hour, hour and a half with the local dad who ran the team. And then we had a game on the weekend. But I was probably one of the only kids who, outside of training and games, was still playing soccer. I was out in the backyard with my brothers every single day playing games and playing with the local neighborhood kids when I could. But yeah, I was the kid who was just absolutely addicted to the sport. I always wanted more training. I always wanted to do more, and was able to
Mm-hmm.
convince my dad to come out and teach me. But one of the main things I think that set me apart as a youth player, and still to this day, to be honest, I still play in adult leagues, and I find myself being one of the better players, is the fact that my dad sat me down and
Mm-hmm.
watched soccer with me. The little things that you can pick up from watching a game and not from training and doing it, like how a forward makes a run, how he comes in front of the how he disappears
Mm-hmm.
behind the defender and then comes in front of the defender. Just the little things my dad and I would watch in a soccer game, and he'd point out and then rewind it and say, watch how this person did this or watch how that player did that. And I think one of my main gripes about today's youth is they don't watch enough soccer. They don't watch
Mm-hmm.
enough games to understand the little pieces of it to separate themselves. So I think, back when I was, 11, 12, 13, 14, I'd watch games with my dad on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings. And he'd say, hey, watch this, watch that. And that's, I think, what set me apart and allowed me to successfully go on and play in a semi-pro and collegiate career, and set me apart from my peers at the time.
Yeah, because you're learning those little nuances and things that you should be doing that maybe coaches don't really see, or like I know as a coach, like I tell my players, I can't tell you what to do in every situation because every situation on the field will be different, but here's an example of what you could do. And so watching those games definitely helps. I know my husband always talks about when they would watch the World Cup back in the 90s, kind of a thing, and it wasn't very popular and things like that. So it's very different now because it's so much more accessible. Well, I mean, now that everything's going to streaming platforms, maybe a little. I know we on your latest show, you guys were talking about Apple and things like that with the MLS and how that's. I mean, we were trying to just watch our local team here, Real Salt Lake, and we're not Apple people. We're Android people. So sorry to all the Apple lovers out there. And I do have an iPad, and we were trying to get my Apple subscription to work, and we watched Ted Lasso. And when we pulled it up, it's really not that easy to get it working. And every time we try to watch Ted Lasso or something on Apple, it always gives us an error, and then we have to go back. And it's not like just turning on my, direct TV or something, and boom, there it is on a channel. So we do get frustrated with that. And even with the Euros, we were watching. Luckily, we have Paramount because we like to watch soccer, and there's been a lot of leagues on those apps. So it is definitely more. I mean, it is accessible, but maybe not accessible if you want to have to pay for all of the subscriptions that are going
Yeah,
on
there
now.
there's so many subscriptions, and I mean, it's the Bundesliga games are on ESPN Plus, the USL Championship games are on ESPN Plus, but that's a service you got to pay for. And as you said,
Mm-hmm.
Paramount and Peacock own the rights to certain leagues, and then Apple
Mm-hmm.
now owns MLS. And it's funny you mentioned that. My wife and I love Ted Lasso. We sit down every Wednesday night to watch the new episode, and the first thing is, all right, well, once we click into Apple and we start the Ted Lasso show, all right, it's going to quit out. It's going to error out at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
So just be prepared for that. And then it jumps in. But I I think Apple, and I am an Apple guy. I'm not an Android guy. I'm an Apple guy. But I think Apple is doing a very good job. And this is from a guy who we don't have an MLS team here. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been into MLS for several years, but not as I am right now that we have the show and everything. But I think Apple is starting something here that is going to last for a long time because they're trying different things. I love the MLS 360. MLS is it's not as entertaining to me as a Bundesliga or as a Premiership
Mm-hmm.
game. But so I struggle sometimes to sit down and watch a full MLS game because I don't have a team. I don't have a certain team that I fight for. I don't have a dog in a fight. But with MLS 360, they've got commentators on there and all the games. And I sit
Mm-hmm.
myself in front of the couch for a couple of hours on Saturday night now watching all the different games. It's like the NFL red zone
Mm-hmm.
for people who don't know. And no, I'm not being paid by Apple. I really am loving the MLS 360. But one thing I don't think a lot of people realize is Apple have poured a ton of money into MLS because they're trying different things and they're trying to get the best out of the product because they eventually would like to purchase the rights to the
Mm-hmm.
NFL or the NBA, one of those big two sports here in America. But I understand the struggles that people are having. One of the guys on our show, Nate, he hates the fact that he now has to purchase another streaming service just to watch MLS
Mm-hmm.
games, and he never had Apple before. But I can understand people griping about it, but unfortunately, it's just kind of the way of the world at the moment,
Yeah.
right? It sucks, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
And we have a local broadcaster here. He played for Real Salt Lake, Brian Dunseth, host of Weekend
Yep.
Tackle, and he's one of the pundits or commentators, I guess you could say, for Apple, and we've watched the
Hmm.
shows, and we definitely think that they're on the right track to making it good and doing it well. So hopefully we can work out the kinks. It does take some time, but hopefully it'll eventually be a good platform and a great show and accessible for people. So,
I think it'll get there. I think it'll
mm-hmm.
get there, but it's going to take some time. There's always going to be some growing pains,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but it'll take time to get there. But I think it eventually will, and I think it'll help the sport grow because since the sport has started in 1996, it's come a long way in this country. That the league has helped the sport grow more, and I think Apple joining up is only going to help even more so.
Going back to your youth career and growing and wanting to be hopefully a professional athlete, when did you realize? So did you out of your youth career, did you get a college scholarship and you played soccer in college and then you wanted to go pro, or what was your stepping stone there?
Sure. So I hope all the kids right now stop listening for a minute because I realized that I was a special player when I was in middle school. We started traveling the country. I played for a local team here called Michigan Wolves. We started going around the country, into tournaments that were pretty big tournaments, and I was becoming one of the standout players. But I was also one of the smaller players. So I realized really quick that I'm a very good player and that I do have an opportunity. And then once I got into high school, um, I went to a high school that didn't really feature soccer. That wasn't really one of our big sports. But in order for me to get noticed, I needed to score goals. And back then, there wasn't social media in the 90s. So I tried to just score as many goals as I could to get my name in the newspaper, to have college coaches recognize me. And I didn't focus on school. I unfortunately let my grades slip a little bit. I kept them up just enough, but I realized that if I was going to go to college, a major university, I had to play soccer, and that was the only way I was going to do it. So I joined up and was a part of ODP, the Olympic Development Program. I was part of the regional team. I got looked at for the national team, but didn't actually make the full national team as a youth. And ended up scoring enough goals and making a name for myself in high school that I was offered. I received several scholarship offers. I ended up choosing Michigan State University, which is about an hour up the road from me. They play in the Big Ten, and I just couldn't turn down the opportunity to play 1 hour away from my house, live at school, and play in the Big Ten. And the setting at the time at Michigan State was just the campus is gorgeous. I absolutely still love it. Still try to go up there as much as I can. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be offered a full scholarship and play there. And one of the things, the determining factors, was that my parents could come watch me play. So that was a huge thing. But I knew as a youth player that, probably around middle school, that I was a special player and that I needed to really focus on the sport and focus and work hard, and that possibly I could get to college and then go pro. That was always the goal, to go pro. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
I focused 100% on soccer. I played basketball for middle school for a year or two, but besides that, I did nothing else. I didn't do any other sports. I did cross country in middle school and then track in middle school. But besides that, once I get to high school, it was 100% soccer. I was focused every single day on becoming a soccer player, and that was the passion. And then once I got into college, it was a grind. There was some ups and some downs, and I wasn't selected to be part of the combine at the time. I wasn't selected to be drafted, but I had offers to go play in the lower leagues of professional soccer, but I turned those down because of at the time in the early 2000s, the money just wasn't sustainable for the life I wanted to live, and I figured if I got out of the workforce, I'd be behind by so much if I decided that I wasn't going to make it as a professional
Mm-hmm.
soccer player. Something I do regret. I wish I would have at least for a year or two tried to go and play the lower level leagues of soccer, professional leagues of soccer here in the USA, and try to get to that try to get to the MLS and try to get full pro. But it is what it is. I made the
Mm-hmm.
decision, and I am where I am now because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a lot of kids these days. They're doing multiple sports, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. But because of the little pieces that separate you through, if you want to be a full professional soccer player when you grow up, you got to focus 100%, in my opinion, on the sport from an early start.
Mm-hmm. For those kids that want to try and go professional, what are your feelings on? Because I know that you're involved with a personal training company, like an outside
Hmm.
team training company. What are your thoughts on? Because I know and have heard of people that just, instead of being a part of a team, they've focused on just doing like personal training, which is, you could go big on like TikTok or something, but soccer is a team sport, so I feel like you have to still be a part of a team. So, what are your feelings on a good balance between the two, your team setting as well as your individual training?
Sure. So I think there definitely needs to be a balance. You need to be part of a team. You need to try to be part of the best team you can be part of. And if you're the best player on your team, you may be on the wrong team. You need to jump up a level. They always say if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I feel that with soccer players. If you're the best player on your team, you got to go find a team where you're not the best player so you can continue to grow. And I have some friends who I grew up playing with who've started a local training company. And the funny thing is, my son is now involved. Actually, as we film this down, I record in my studio here in a local soccer facility, and down below is the field where he's training with that company. It's called Next Level Training here in Metro Detroit. There needs to be a balance because I've seen players who are some of the most technical and skillful players I've ever played alongside of. And you're just amazed with their juggling skills, and you're just amazed with how quick they can turn with the ball and the things they can do. But then you put them inside of a game and they can't see a 5 to 10 yard pass, and they can't read the game properly, and they become less than an average player because they have no idea what to do in a game setting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you were to put Messi next to the best juggler and all these guys who juggle and have all these videos, Messi would look like an average player. But inside of a game, you put both those players in a game setting, and obviously we know Messi is the best player in the world. It's because of his brain and what he can do on a soccer field and how he can see 2 to 3 steps ahead. So I definitely think there needs to be a balance. It needs to be, hey, you've got a team, you're playing on a good team, the best team you can be on, and you're learning every day. You're at practice, you're doing scrimmages, and then you're going to games and you're playing against good competition where you're not winning every week because that's not going to do anything for you. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's the other piece where you go and do a training session for an hour or 2 hours a week, and they're teaching you the little things about looking over your shoulder and how to receive the ball and how to open your hips, and the little things that you can then take and put into games. There definitely needs to be a balance, in my opinion. And then, like I said earlier, one of the things, if kids are doing both of those, they're playing on a good club team and they're doing training, that's great. But then one of the pieces they're missing is maybe sitting down and watching the soccer game, and
Mm-hmm.
watching the little pieces. But there definitely needs to be a balance, in my opinion.
Yeah, we were just in Las Vegas for a tournament for my son and my daughter, and we have the VO cameras that are out now. And so it was really interesting to go back and just, even though they're 11, 10, and 11-year-olds, that we're watching. It's interesting to go back and watch the film. I mean, we watched it, me and my husband, and sometimes I think we only filmed my son's games. Somebody else recorded my daughter's games, but going back and just watching those games and going, oh, if that person would have just passed wide instead of going forward, like that kind of thing. And those learning moments where
Right.
you can go back and go, okay, maybe, maybe next time I could look for that kind of a thing. And so even reviewing your own game film is also good if you have access to that. I know not everybody does, and it is kind of expensive. So whatever film you can watch, or I know our teams are a part of the E64 league that's out there now, and we'll get into that in a minute. But just they have a platform where they can watch each other's games from across the country. So I know that they do like video sessions of the teams that they're going to be playing, so that they know tactically how they're going to change up and play against a team, things like
Yeah.
that. So it's definitely good to incorporate all the aspects of it, mind, body,
Absolutely.
everything. So stepping into a little bit of the different leagues. So when we grew up playing soccer, it was kind of like there was only one league.
Yeah.
But now that it's been here for a while, the natural thing is to create more. So
Yeah.
what are
Try to make it bigger and better, as they say, right? Is what they're trying to do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so what are your thoughts on how the systems, that you've got US club soccer and USU soccer, and the competing leagues and things. And I know on the We Are Soccer page, within the last day or two, somebody shared an article by Eric Winalda and talking about youth soccer in America, one of the things. And it kind of got into, I mean, he didn't specifically say different leagues and things, but he was talking about how there's too many kids playing soccer, and maybe, I mean, the market is kind of saturated because, like you said, if you're the best player on your team, you need to go play with better players. Maybe you're on the wrong team. And so I know, at least in our area, we do have the Real Salt Lake Academy. And so at certain ages, they'll try and bring in the best talent from around the area, but they're also taking out of state players and things like that. So it's really hard to get teams of legit the best players all together in the same area. So what are your thoughts on that, and just the different leagues that are there? So there's, E64, ECNL, EA, GA, all the things.
Yeah, there's almost too many leagues, and one of the things I don't like about youth soccer today is that these clubs they're forming mega clubs now, and it's becoming more about the money um, than anything else. I think a lot of the coaches and a lot of the clubs are forgetting that essentially this is youth sports. This is about the
Hmm.
kids. Majority of these kids, 99.9% of these kids in these clubs are not going to go professional.
Hmm.
So teach them the best soccer you can teach them, but you're also teaching them life lessons, right? Show up on
Hmm.
time, be accountable, you're part of a team, things of that nature, life lessons that are going to carry through for the rest of their lives. But when I was growing up in the area here in Michigan, in Metro Detroit, there was we had for every age group. I was a 1980 age group. We had three leagues. League One was the best, and we had Wolves, Vardar, Rochester, and then several other clubs. And then if you were finished, I think there was eight clubs, and if you finished in the bottom two, you were dropping down. So we had promotion and relegation. Um, and and my team, the 1980 Wolves, there was one team. And every year we had about 60, 70, 80, sometimes 90 kids that come out to try out, and we could only take 18. So the rest of the kids, you either go try out the other clubs or you just don't play soccer. Nowadays, you get 90 kids to show up for one age group. You go, well, hold on, we've got an A team. Now we can form a B team, a C team, and do we have enough for a D team? Maybe. And it's become
Hmm.
just take the kids to form teams in an age bracket. So it's become saturated, it's become watered down, and you're paying a lot of money for your kid to be on a low level soccer team when essentially it's just rec. Now that kind of goes against what I just said a minute ago, where you're teaching your kids life lessons by being part of a team. So I'm conflicted with some of that stuff, but I'm also conflicted because people are like, well, I know your kid's on the, the purple team, which is our lowest level team, but he could possibly rise through the ranks and become a professional. Let's not BS anybody here. If by the age
Mm-hmm.
of 12 your kid's on a purple team in the fourth tier in that age group, he's not going to go pro. But maybe being part of the club, just be honest. Like, hey, your kid's not going to go pro. Let's all be on the same page here. We're going to teach soccer. We're going to have fun. We're going to teach him to show up on time, set his bag down, be part of the team, and things of that nature. But there is a lot more today than there was training wise. Now we've got coaches who are going through a lot of different certifications and classes, and there's a lot more trainers involved. So the best of the best can be found. Um, I'm conflicted because I wish I'd grown up in today's age where I had this opportunity compared to several, when I did grow
Mm-hmm.
up and you had to
Mm-hmm.
really score goals to make a name for yourself. I just I get very worried about today's soccer and the amount of leagues we have and the amount of different levels we have and the amount of money it costs.
Mm-hmm.
If when I was if I was growing up today, I can guarantee my dad would have said, "You want me to pay $4,000 a year for you to play soccer? That's not going to happen. I don't care if you're the best player. That's not happening. I'm not paying that."
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't grow up rich. So my dad would have been like, "You can go play in the
Mm-hmm.
backyard." And this is coming from, my family, who's my dad, as I said, was a professional soccer player. And he would have
Mm-hmm.
literally said, "I'm not paying that amount of money for you to play this sport. So go figure out another way to or something else to do." So I get conflicted
Mm-hmm.
with the leagues and the amount of stuff, and I see more leagues being formed, and I see other clubs being started just to make money. And I love the fact that the sport's growing. I absolutely love how many kids are involved and that it's overtaking some of the
Mm-hmm.
other sports here in America. But I don't like the fact that it's becoming a money generator. I'm right now. I have two kids who play. I have three kids in total. The two oldest, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, are currently involved in a club. I love the club. It costs a lot of money. If my kids all of a sudden decided they didn't want to play, I would have no problem dropping them out and say, "Oh, we'll go do something else," because I don't want my kids half into it and I'm paying a ton of money for it. So, you know,
Yeah.
um, I'm kind of
Yeah.
being a
I've talked
hypocrite
to
by paying that amount of money to have my kid in a club, but saying it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple parents recently whose kids are kind of at the age where it's kind of a defining thing, and so they're like, if they're not in it for the long haul and their heart's not in it and they still want to play, they're going to
Yeah,
wreck, kind of a thing. Like, they're like, we don't want to put the time and the money and the commitment into it if they're not serious about it. I don't know if their kids are going to be. It could go either way, and whatever's best for them. I understand it's very expensive. I mean, even here in Utah, growing up, there was only. I mean, there weren't even that many clubs going on, but now there's tons of them. And I have a friend here who is a big soccer guy, and he moved. But every time he hears of like a new club, he'll like post about it, and he'll be like, "Oh, not another one," kind of a thing. Like, and I can totally understand that because it's just taking away
yeah,
kids, because maybe they want their kid to be the standout player on this team, and but is that really going to make their kid that much better? I don't
yeah,
know. I don't. I'm like you said. If you're the best player on your team, you need to be challenged, and so you need to find an environment that's challenging. I know, at least with the boys program at our club, if the best players in a specific age group, they train
sure,
up. They go and train with the older kids, so that way they're still getting challenged. And I've been more involved in the girls program, so I'm trying to basically mirror the exact same thing with the girls program, where if they're top players on certain age groups, have them train
yeah,
up because they need that.
yeah.
They need that,
That is
basically.
that is awesome to hear. I'm a big fan of having kids train a year or two above where they should be. I did it when I was younger. I always used to go play with the older kids, and they would, for lack of a better term, kick the crap out of me because I was a small kid. But I can tell you, when I went back to play with my own age group, oh man, it was so easy. was like, I've been playing against kids who are 2 years
Mm-hmm.
older than me for the last couple months, and now I come and play against these kids. Are you kidding? This is easy. So clubs that do stuff like that and do move them up, kids have to be challenged, because if they're not challenged, they're going to get bored and their skills are going to go downhill. So I love to hear that.
Yeah, our 2012 son, the team that was just in Las Vegas, they won first in the gold group of their age group. But in our league here in Utah, they play up during the season because they need that challenge because I mean, when we have all the best players playing together in that age group for that team, I'm sorry if anybody's listening, but we kill your teams. We rock them. So, but when we go out of state, we have to be challenged. And so, in order for them to consistently get that challenging thing, they have to play up against the bigger kids because then when we go to California, Las Vegas, eventually we'll go to like Texas and things like that. We have to be ready for that physicality, that skill level, and so the training up is part of what, or playing up, I guess, is what they do, and it's it's definitely fun to watch. I mean, they're a fun little team that I get to watch. So,
That's good.
and my
Makes it
son
enjoyable. Yeah.
is the goal. Yeah, my son's the goalkeeper on that team, and he had an amazing final. He had some pretty big saves in that game, and so he was pretty stoked when he came off the field. I never wanted to be a goalkeeper mom, but he absolutely loves it. So if you're a keeper mom or a goalkeeper, I feel for
Yep.
you.
Yeah. Oh man.
you
Yep.
know,
Goalkeeper.
yeah, because I was a defender. My husband was like a midfield forward kind of a
Mhm.
player, and so I mean, but he loves it. So
Yeah,
it's
it's interesting how
definitely
that happens. My dad was a 6'2" central defender, and I can't defend to save my life. And I've turned out to be a goal scorer. So it's strange how that happens, isn't it? And
hmm
the funny thing is,
yeah.
my son, he's actually taking after me, and he's becoming a midfielder and forward and scoring goals. So sometimes we follow in footsteps, and sometimes they don't. So it is what it is.
Yeah, so and my daughters that are just starting to play, my oldest daughter, who's third, she is like a defender and she refuses to play forward. So I'm like, well, I guess she got that
Yeah.
from me because I hated to play forward. I don't know why. I did it in like rec because you kind of played all the positions and but I preferred to be the defender and in that kind of a position on the field. That's where I felt most comfortable. And then our we have twin daughters that are 7 and they both, I mean, they play all over the field because they just play like 4v4 right now. But when they went indoor, they did a league that had goalkeepers, and they were both like, "We want to play goalie," and we're like, "Oh no, not again." We told them we're like, we're only one goalkeeper
Yep.
in the family, and they both got really upset. They both got really upset, and we're like, "Okay, we'll let you play." But their coach was really good about rotating who got to play keeper for all the games so that everybody could play the different positions. But it was pretty
Yep.
funny to to see them to see them try that. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about specifically?
Yeah, why don't one thing I would love to have kids know these days is that doing professional training, right, on the side with trainers, and doing training with your clubs. There's little things that you can do to improve yourself and your fitness. My mom is absolutely convinced that I was the quickest person on a soccer field on almost every single game I participated in, because I grew up with a trampoline in my backyard. Um, she's absolutely convinced of it. I have a trampoline in the backyard for my kids. I try to get my kids to jump on it. But in the last couple of weeks, I've told my son, you know, if you don't want to go jump on the trampoline and have fun, that's fine, do that. But jump rope. If you jump rope for 5 minutes a day, the your ankles and the muscles in your lower legs are going to build up and become so strong that running is just become so easy, because he started doing it, and I told him, I bought him a jump rope, like a $5 or $10 jump rope, which is a nice jump rope, I guess. And he's been doing it every
Mm-hmm.
day, and we can see the difference. He's only been doing it for a couple of weeks. So I try to every day, like, hey, go jump rope for 5 minutes and then juggle a ball for 5 minutes. And my son right now is in the mode of, I want to be a professional player. I want to be the best player I can be. And he goes and does it. And he's absolutely loving it, but it's paying off. So if he continues to do it, I guarantee it's going to pay off where a lot more people are going to notice. I would like to tell all the kids out there, if they're listening, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what age you're at, whether you're 10, whether you're 20, whether you're 40, jump rope for 5 minutes a day and try to juggle a ball. Even if you suck at juggling, juggle a ball. After a couple of weeks, you will notice how much better your first touch is and how much quicker your first when you get the ball, how quick you are on the field. So I'd love for kids to be able to know that, and everybody to know that, because little things like that will help you um, become a better player. And again, hey man, I still play at the age of 40. I still try to play as competitive as I can be, and I want to be the best player on the field. So I know there's people out there who do the same, and if there's anything for 5 to 10 minutes a day
Mm-hmm.
that can make you better, give it a shot.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know that there's players that are listening that are always looking for just that little bit of
The
advice that
ledge.
might just elevate them just a little bit more. So hopefully that's something that people are going to take and use. I mean, I personally hate to jump rope. I remember when I was in elementary school, we did some jump rope-a-thon thing at school. And I liked that because I got out of class, but then it was
Yeah.
like you had to jump rope and I was good at it, but now as an adult I'm like, I really don't like
Yeah,
jump
no
roping.
one likes really jump roping, but I think if it's
Mhm.
like that, what was those commercials? For just 7 minutes a day, if you can work out, you'll lose all this weight, right?
Mhm.
We used to hear those years ago.
Right?
Now, I really do believe though that 5 minutes a day of juggling and 5 minutes a day of just 10 minutes solid of jump roping and juggling, trust me, the first touch, it will help you, and it'll help your ankles and your calf muscles for when you're on the soccer field. So yeah, you're right. If people are looking for just that little edge, that's the thing, in my opinion. So my son's jumping on it, and he's become a little quicker. And yeah,
I know my son
because
wants
yeah,
to get quicker, and so that's that's something that we'll have to work on with him. So see if he'll do that. My in-laws, my husband's parents have a trampoline in their backyard, and so whenever we're over there, the kids are always out on the trampoline, jumping on the trampoline, but we don't have a
yeah,
yard big enough for that.
I've always had a trampoline, and like you said, my mom is absolutely convinced that I was the quickest kid on a soccer field because I was just on a trampoline every day. I don't know if it's true, but whatever, buying into it.
I could
So
totally I mean, I believe it, those muscles in your leg definitely help. And
yeah,
my husband, I know he was a super quick. Him and his brother were super quick players on the field, and they had a trampoline. They were jumping off their kids. Close your ears. They were jumping off the roof of their house onto their trampoline. But things like that, they were a little bit wild. It was definitely
yeah,
a little bit more scary back then for those things. The stuff that they used to do. So do
yeah.
you have, just going back to your youth career and stuff, do you have a favorite memory, whatever it is, of playing
Hmm.
soccer as a youth player? Favorite tournament, favorite moment, standout moment for you?
You know, as a youth player, no, I mean, we won a lot of trophies when we were younger. When people ask me about my youth and the soccer, the first thing that comes to mind is my training sessions, the practices. It's not even the games, just the little things of trying to be the best player on the team, and being around the guys. When, as you said that, the first thing that came to my head was when I was 13 and 14 years old, being at the field that we were at and training 2, 3 times a week. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I just used to absolutely love training and playing soccer. And then one of my ultimate favorite memories of soccer is my last home game at Michigan State. We actually lost 1-0 to Notre Dame, and it was in the pouring rain. Um, and I that was probably one of my favorite games to play in. We lost, unfortunately, but it was the last time I ever played at the stadium of Old College Field at Michigan State University. But I had a great game, and man, I just loved it. That was one of my fun favorite games I think I've ever played in, and unfortunately, it was a loss. And I've played in a lot of big games. I played semi-pro for Detroit City FC. I played in Big Ten championships. I played at ODP at the Olympic Development Center there in in California. But that game at Michigan State, the last home game, was one of my favorites, and we lost, and it was just a regular league game playing against Notre Dame. Yeah, so many different memories stick out in my life that, like I said, one of my first memories is, being at halftime of my dad's professional soccer game, watching 80,000 people chant and cheer in South Africa for him. So, you asked me about my favorite memories, and instantly things come flooding back of soccer. I hope my wife's not listening. It's not the marriage. It's not the kids being born. That's how my brain is wired.
Yeah, those are, I mean, they're great memories. You make those lifelong friendships with your teammates, hopefully, and I mean, they do become your family for however many years that you're together. I mean, I remember the first time my husband, as a coach, he took a team basically from when they were like 4 or 5, and then all the way up until they graduated high school. And then all of a sudden it was like they weren't there anymore. And I was like, these were like our kids. Like we watched
Yeah.
them grow up, we watched them become men, and now, we still see them on like social media and things, and they've all moved to different parts of the country and stuff, but it's fun to hear and see the ones that are still hanging out together and they still do stuff together and their parents are still pretty close. And so it's definitely good to make those bonds and those friendships, because you never know when you're going to run into them again too. I know I had a teammate from years ago that her daughter's the same age as my daughter, and now they play together on the same team. And so I've seen that happen a few times with some people that I know, where their kids end up on the same teams, and they went to high school together, they knew each other from whatever. So it's always fun to see those relationships coming full circle.
Yep.
I guess you could
Yep.
say.
I've got a couple of those as well. I bumped into some people recently where I used to play with them 20 years ago, and now I'm bumping into them. Man, I haven't seen you ever. What are you doing out here? Like, oh, my kid's out here. I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, oh man, comes full circle, doesn't it? It's funny. It's great to see. It's the life cycle of soccer, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and we're hoping, there's a few of the players that my husband used to coach that they're kind of looking to turn back into the coaching setting, and they had a really great mentor in him, and so they're hopefully going to be coming back and becoming a part of that era in the coaching and the training and things like that. So it's always fun to see them build their
Yep.
careers on soccer and different things, because I have another friend whose dad coached my brother, and I guess he was on the same team. They were friends, so I'm friends with him through my brother because they were friends growing up.
Yep.
But his dad coached their team, and then I recently saw him. He's coaching one of his kids, and so it's always fun to see that. Fun to
It's
see
always
that
fun to see
happening.
people getting back into the game and giving back. So it's what it's all about.
Again, anything else that you want to cover? Anything else that you want to talk about? Or
Oh, no, I think we've covered it. And I really appreciate what you're doing. This is such an awesome thing to see people interviewing people who are involved in the game, whether it's the youth level, the pro level, the college level. It's fun to watch. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts. I'm going to listen to a couple more, but you've got a fan in me and the guys here at We Are Soccer. It's so fun to see this sport kind of just explode for the better, and people producing content, free content like this that is just so interesting, and hearing about people's lives and how they got into the sport and what they're doing these days. So I appreciate that you're doing this, and you've got a fan in us at We Are Soccer here.
well, thank you. I've become a fan of your guys' show once I found it, so that's great. I love listening to your show and the different topics that you guys hit, because it's really funny. When I was listening to, I think it was the most recent episode, and some of the things that you guys kind of argue about a few different topics, but there's things that, like, me and my husband, we talk about, like just US soccer stuff, and then one of you guys will kind of agree with what we think, and maybe not all of you agree on the same thing, but we're just like, see, we're not the only ones that think, whatever.
We've had a lot of people say, "Hey, are you guys just arguing for the sake of arguing?" And we don't. There's a lot of topics that we all agree on, and we just go, "Okay, great, we all agree on it." I guess we can't really go from there, but there's a lot of topics where we can agree. We've just got such different point of views. Brooks, who's on our show, is a youth scout. He scouts youth players. And then Nate is a coach, a local youth coach, but has played in Germany and really loves the Bundesliga. I'm a guy who loves the Premiership and has grown up playing and has different point of views of things. So, yeah, our show is based on just talking about the topics and being as entertaining as we can, but not being fake. We want to be real. And we've actually had to sit down in the last couple of months and have conversations with ourselves and say, listen, we get really heated, but all right, stop. Let's keep it kid friendly, because we've had a lot of people say, hey, you guys got into it real good. And then all of a sudden some swear words started popping out there, and we were like, yeah, we know. So we are more kid friendly now. We're trying to be, but when we get into topics that we feel passionate about, you can definitely tell. And we found that that's what a lot of people want. They want the differing opinions. And those aren't fake. Those are just coming through as real, coming through because they are real. We're passionate about the sport, all three of us. So, but as I said, next week we're going to go, myself and one of the guys are going to go live every day at noon Eastern time. And we're just going to talk about transfers, rumors, any of the games that are coming up for that day, games the previous day, and any news that's breaking. So we're going to have a little fun and see how that does for our network.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. So I don't have anything else for you. If anybody has any questions for Craig, please reach out to me, or you can reach out to him at We Are Soccer. You can find them on, almost every platform that you guys stream on, a lot of different platforms when you guys do your show. And just go look for them. I follow them on Facebook and Instagram. They're on Twitter. I think you guys are on Twitch.
Yep. Yeah, we're on
YouTube.
Everything. In our Facebook group, the We Are Soccer Facebook group, we have it's a private group because we have a lot of people from around the world who are trying to get into the group and do bad things, put bad links, and only sell their own stuff. But we have 1,600, I think 1,700 people in our private group. If you are in the U.S. or in any of the countries and you want to talk soccer and not advertise your own weird stuff, we're more than happy to let you in. But we have some great topics and great people, discussions that happen in that group. So I can't endorse it enough. And let's put it this way. I own the group, but I'm not on there every hour. Like, we've got some great admins that keep it civil, and some good people. It's just good discussions. So if anybody's looking for a Facebook group to join, the We Are Soccer Facebook group and the We Are Soccer Facebook page, we put out some great content that is soccer, youth soccer, local soccer here in Detroit, and then national soccer, and then pro soccer from around the world. Great discussions. So if anybody wants to join up, please feel free to do so. It's free and fun.
Awesome. Well, I will have links in the show notes of this, so you guys can find the link to their show there. But thank you so much, Craig, for coming on today. It was such a joy having you, and anybody that's listening from We Are Soccer, hopefully you guys can subscribe and give us a review here, or give me a review. I always say we because I feel like we as a community, me and whoever I'm interviewing. So give us a 5-star review, or wherever you're listening on your podcasts. But thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Katie. Very much appreciate it. And you, like I said, you've got a fan in us, so we'll be following along for future episodes.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see you guys down the road as well.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Craig, for that great interview. I love chatting with you. We probably could have just gone on and on and on, and we would have, but we definitely both have a lot going on in our lives. So thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on the podcast and sharing your story and insights. And again, everybody go over to We Are Soccer Show and follow them, listen to them. It's a great time. It's a great listen. And they just talk about all the stuff, all the things. Last week they did do the live shows. I know Craig was talking about they were going live every day next week, and that actually happened last week. So hopefully they will be doing that in the future. So keep an eye out there. As long as you're following them, you'll get the notifications on when they have updates. So definitely keep an eye out there and follow them. Again, their links are going to be in the show notes, so look for that. And merch, it's almost done. So you guys follow me on Instagram, because I'm going to be doing giveaways probably next week. Next week's episode is going to be with Matt Walbrook. I interviewed Ellie Walbrook earlier on in the season, and I interviewed her dad,
and it was a great chat. It was a good time. We again probably could have gone on forever, but it's it was a sunny day, and we both had other things that we had to go do. More soccer that had to be done. So I'm excited to share that interview with you guys. If you guys have any questions for future guests, topics that you want covered, anybody that you want me to reach out to, that maybe I could get an interview with, whether it be a referee, a coach, anything like that, just let me know and I'll see what I can do. So shoot me an email, kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com, or find me on Instagram, kickitwithkatiepodcast _ between all the words. But I am here for you guys if you guys have any questions. Thank you guys so much for following me on this journey, and thank you all for sharing your stories. Make sure to give me a 5-star review wherever you listen, and thanks for kicking it with me. Have a great day. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at kickitwithkatiepodcast _ between all the words. You can reach out to me with questions at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com. I also have a feature with SpeakPipe where you can leave me your own voicemail message if you want to be featured on the podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.